Now the problems are going to get a little trickier, so we're going to talk about other strategies as well in terms of adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. Now usually if you have a fraction in the format something like 2/3 plus 1/4, you'll notice that 3 and 4 don't have a common denominator other than multiplying the numbers by themselves to get 3 times 4, which is 12. We're going to follow that same concept here with adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. So in this case, I have 4 over x plus 2 plus 5 over 7x minus 3. My common denominator is actually going to be x times 2 times 7x minus 3. So that means that each of these fractions will have to be changed to fit the common denominator. In this first instance, I have 4 over x plus 2. Well, to make a common denominator, I need to multiply that by 7x minus 3, which means I also need to multiply the numerator by 7x minus 3. Then I also have this denominator of 7x minus 3. In order to make it a common denominator of x plus 2 times 7x minus 3, I need to multiply this by x plus 2, which means I need to multiply my numerator as well by x plus 2. So now what we're going to do is move this over here for a moment. And we're going to go ahead and take a look and work this out. So for my first fraction, I have, using the distributive property, I have 4 times 7x, which is 28x, and 4 times negative 3, which is a negative 12 over my common denominator of 7x minus 3 times x plus 2, plus, now using the distributive property over here with the 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 5x plus 10 over a common denominator of 7x minus 3 times x plus 2. Now I can go ahead and add everything together under that common denominator of 7x minus 3 times x plus 2. And that's going to get me 28x plus 5x, which is 33x. A negative 12 plus 10 is 33x minus 2. And that's my answer. Now I've moved this over just so that we have more space to work with this next problem. This one's going to be a little tricky because we have x squared minus 25, which as we all know is a difference of squares. So I can rewrite that as 1 times x plus 5, or 1 over, sorry, x plus 5 times x minus 5. And then if I try to add it with my next fraction, I have 5 minus x. Now, x minus 5 and 5 minus x are not the same thing. You can see here this x is negative, this x is positive, this 5 is negative, and this 5 is positive. So they're completely the opposite of each other. But what I can do is go ahead and factor out a negative from the 5 minus x. Because what's going to happen is it's going to accomplish two things. One, it's going to make my denominator change from 5 minus x to 2 over x minus 5. So now that we can see that I've factored out a negative from a positive 5, which leaves me with a negative 5, and a negative from a negative x makes it a positive x. But also what happens is it changes this problem to a subtraction problem. So those are the two separate things that happened. Now when I look at a common denominator, I see that they both have x minus 5 in common. Both are common terms, which means then my common denominator is just going to be x plus 5 times x minus 5. So that means I don't have to do anything to my first fraction since that's already in the lowest common denominator. But with my second fraction, I'm going to have to multiply this by x plus 5, which means I multiply my numerator by x plus 5. So then as we go ahead and work this out now, using the distributive property, for my first fraction, doesn't change. I still have x plus 5 times x minus 5. My second fraction is going to be minus 2x plus 10 over x plus 5 times x minus 5. So here's the tricky part to remember. I'm subtracting this entire fraction, which means I'm not only subtracting the 2x, but I'm also subtracting the 10 as well. So when we go to combine our like terms, I have 1 minus 10. So that's going to be a negative 9. So I have negative 9 minus 2x. Or if you want to reorder it to say negative 2x minus 9, you could say that over x plus 5 times x minus 5. So something to think about, a lot of different steps are going to be happening in these types of problems. What you need to do is remember all the different steps. First, check for common denominators. Second, see if you have positive or negative values that can be rearranged. If not, then you can go on to that third step where you find the common denominator and then multiply your numerator and your denominator by that missing element in order to make it a common denominator as your answer. A lot of stuff, but you'll be fine if you remember the steps. Let's go ahead and take a look at the challenge problem. You can go ahead and do this one on your own, and we can talk about it in class some other time. All right, thanks.